Hello and welcome to your Blood Red podcast. You might have noticed this is not the dulcet tones of Joe Rimmer. It is Ryan Paton in his first time hosting, so go easy on me if I make a mistake. I am joined by Paul Gorst. Paul, how are you?
Good, yeah. We spoke on Friday on this pod about maybe not having loads to talk about, but been quite a few developments over the weekend, hasn't it? And today, so a fair bit to go at today. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I'm also joined by Theo Squires. Theo, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm looking forward to actually having something to talk about. We actually have a bit of transfer news. It's quite nice, isn't it?
I'm now starting to worry whether I got drafted in because there was nothing to talk about, and now it's actually fell flat on Joe's face, really, because there's actually a few talking points.
Yeah, no, there is, yeah. It makes a change, doesn't it? Because it's been, say, the last 4 weeks, it's been a little bit quiet, hasn't it, on the Liverpool front. We've had Slot's introductory interview, of course, with LFC TV and one or two other little bits, but today it feels like we've got a good few things to get stuck into.
Yeah,
it's been milking Lenny Yoro, haven't we?
Yeah.
He's not going to come, but they want him. We'll just keep reading that one dry.
But before we get started, just a word from our sponsors, NordVPN, obviously on board with us this season. To get the best discounts off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/bloodred. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link's in the podcast episode description box.
Get on board with Nord.
Get on board with Nords. But there's only one place to start, and that is obviously now the huge talking point that is Anthony Gordon. Just so it's obviously loads of reports this over the weekend that Liverpool of Liverpool's interest, and now the players' heads being turned. Just Paul, what did you make of the interest, and what's the latest with it?
Yeah, it was a little bit maybe a little bit of a surprise, but maybe not as well. We spoke a few times last week, didn't we, Theo, about the PSR issues that, over half of courses of the Premier League have been sort of fallen into, really. Newcastle, Chelsea, Aston Villa, Leicester, Everton and Nottingham Forest. And we did a little panel piece about who would you take from those, was it 5 or 6 teams who were sort of impacted by it? And was it you said Gordon, or was it Beth?
Beth Lindop.
Beth Lindop went with Anthony Gordon, you went with Jarell Quansah, didn't you? And I definitely sat on the fence and went with Alexander Isak.
You're on the right club.
Yeah. And then it turns out that behind the scenes, Liverpool actually were being offered Anthony Gordon. Newcastle, well, a bit of conjecture over what happened. We understand that Liverpool were approached by Newcastle with an offer to take Anthony Gordon off their hands, but they wanted Jarell Quansah to go the other way. Liverpool never made a formal offer, we're led to believe. Never got that far, but undoubtedly admirers of the player and sort of have become increasing admirers of him, having seen him sort of develop from a raw talent with potential at Everton to someone who's now in the England squad and a real star of that Newcastle team who, if it wasn't for injuries, they might have had a bit of a better push at a European place last season. So he was offered to Liverpool. They like the player, but feel that they're well stocked in that area, which is fair enough when you think that Luis Diaz plays there, Diogo Jota, Darwin Núñez, Cody Gakpo, of course, is playing there at the moment for Holland. That's his natural position, if you ask him. So you can see why Liverpool are reluctant to enter into things, even at a bit of a knockdown PSR impacted price. And certainly didn't want to lose Quansah, who's, he's another player who's developed himself into on the cusp of England stardom, hasn't he, this season. I'm sure he'll have a huge future with England once these European Championships are out the way. But it's interesting because it doesn't appear to be the last we've heard of it, does it? Some reports today that Gordon has had his head turned by his boyhood club coming in for him, and he was starting to dream of a life as a Liverpool player, and it's all sort of fallen apart for him. But that's interest hasn't really gone away, although Liverpool will probably have to pay a little bit more of a premium now if they were to re-enter into talks this summer to bring him to Liverpool. But yeah, certainly some real news to get stuck into, and it was a fascinating development, I thought.
Absolutely. Theo, what did you make of it all? Were you surprised by the transfer link, or?
It did sort of sneak up out of nowhere, didn't it? Right before that PSR deadline. My first thought was the shock at Quansah, because obviously I think it was the Mail who broke the story, weren't they? And it was like, hang on, Liverpool offering Jarell Quansah here, like we've seen him have the season of his life. He is going to be first choice in this team for years to come. So once you get into the thick of it, it's like, oh, thank God, they don't want him to go. But yeah, then it's just that interest and intrigue of what goes on here, because Newcastle are obviously very desperate, because they needed to raise, I think it was like 60 million plus to comply with the rules, which they managed to do in the end. But you wouldn't imagine it's the last we hear of it. Like, as Gorsty's just referenced, if Gordon's had his head turned, it's just what happens next. Obviously, he's away with England at the Euros. There's going to be that knock-on effect in terms of Liverpool. Like, if Barcelona come calling for Luis Diaz, he's going to be at the Copa America for another 2-3 weeks. You're waiting for these pieces to fall into place. If Liverpool did get Anthony Gordon, I think he'd be a good signing. He's not necessarily an upgrade on Diaz now, but he's still young enough to get better and take those next steps. He ticks the homegrown box. He can actually finish. Like, there are a few times where I'm sure we're all pulling our hair out at Luis Diaz's finishing last year. Man City at home being the main one, whereas Gordon, he had a really good season in front of goal. The fact that he wants that move, doesn't he? It's his dream club. It's his dream move. If Diaz has always dreamed of going to Barcelona and Gordon's always dreamed of going to Liverpool, it's something that you can see happening. And yeah, they might have to pay a little bit more for him. But Liverpool haven't been scared of doing that in the past when they know it's the right player for them. It's someone they'll have been aware of for a long, long time. Obviously, he was on their academy before he went to Everton. So just wait and see. There's going to be plenty more twists and turns on this one, I'm sure. Just depends how happy Newcastle can keep Anthony Gordon when he comes back. What Barcelona do with Diaz when they've got to sell, I think, Rafinha to raise the funds. Plenty more twists and turns.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you see it all playing out, Paul?
I don't think we've heard the last of it. I really don't. I think maybe an opportunity has passed Liverpool by to get him on the cheap, essentially, with Newcastle being so restricted by the PSR things. I mean, ultimately, Newcastle, if they have complied with PSR, and we're not privy to how much they needed, we go off what we read in the national newspaper. I think Luke Edwards of the Telegraph said 60 million. I was reading a piece from Chris Ward in The Athletic today that suggested that it could be as much as 100 million. No one truly knew what Newcastle needed to raise. But they've done so by selling Elliot Anderson and Yankuba Mensah, who not necessarily first team stars at St James's Park, are they? I'm sure they were reluctant to lose both players, but they've complied. I'm sure they believe that they've complied without losing any of their main guns. But the fact that they did offer Gordon suggests that they feel that he's expendable, and he's almost become a little bit of a sacrificial lamb, hasn't he, to PSR, which, okay, Newcastle will have done that, reluctantly, but they've still sort of entered into the negotiating table with a Anthony Gordon-shaped chip on the table. So does that suggest to Gordon that he's not quite loved as much as he maybe thought he was within the hierarchy itself? Maybe that has impacted his thinking as well. And there's no doubt that if your boyhood club comes calling, you're certainly looking hard and long at that offer, aren't you? So yeah, I just don't think we've seen the last of this. What I would say is Liverpool do feel they're well stocked there, and they'll be able to argue that with the players they've got. But could Gordon, could he play on the right? He certainly made his name off the left, hasn't he, for Everton and then Newcastle, but he's still young enough to maybe move on to the right to be a deputy for Mohamed Salah, because Liverpool don't really have one there, do they? A natural one. It's sort of Salah and then it's Harvey Elliott. Maybe Ben Doak a little bit, but you're asking a lot of him there, who's barely played any senior minutes. So yeah, I don't think we've seen the last of this, but it's a transfer that has certainly got fans interested, going off what we've had over social media this weekend.
Interesting as well is, with it being a PSR thing, that's over a 3-year period. There is nothing to say Newcastle won't be in the exact same issue in 12 months' time, and they have to sell players again. Like, we've seen clubs not sidestep it, but make a big sale in January so they're not as stung come the summertime. I think that's how Gordon ended up going to Newcastle in the first place from Everton 18 months ago, wasn't it? So just because Newcastle managed to raise the funds elsewhere at this point, it doesn't mean they won't be tempted into selling later on in the window. Obviously, they have to play it this way and go, Liverpool approached us rather than we approached them, because otherwise you've got a really unhappy player there. Potentially, you'll go, well, it's my boyhood club, you wanted to offload me, I am going, you're going to make this happen, you are the ones who have brought this on yourselves. But yeah, it certainly seems something that we can see happening in a few weeks to a couple of months' time. Just depends on the other pieces that are falling into place with it, Diaz and everything else. I've seen rumours today of Darwin Núñez going to Turkey, which I think Gorst is doing a piece on. It sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it's silly season, isn't it? All these rumours are just going to keep popping up. If a player leaves Liverpool, they're going to need to replace him, and if it's a forward, there's not many better on the market at the moment than Anthony Gordon.
Yeah, I was going to say, sort of, what do you think it is about Gordon's qualities that have interested Liverpool? Because one thing that I was looking at quite surprised me was he scored against all the big six last year. Sort of indicates that he could be a bit of a big game player, a bit of a clutch player.
Yeah, he was really good against Manchester City in January, I think it was, and Newcastle really unlucky not to get anything from that game. I think De Bruyne came on equalised, and then it was Oscar Bob who got the winner in stoppage time. He's really direct, isn't he? He's got pace to burn. He's massively improved his end product. I think it was 11 goals and 10 assists
something like that,
last season, which are really decent numbers. Like I say, Newcastle really impacted by that injury crisis sort of around about November, December time when it started to go wrong for them. But he's had a taste of Champions League football now. Obviously, they only played the group stages, but they were real Champions League calibre opposition, weren't they? Borussia Dortmund, who were finalists, AC Milan, and Paris Saint-Germain as well. So that'll be sort of an extra little negotiation tactic in Liverpool's back pocket if it's needed, I'm sure. But yeah, he looks like someone who could really be ready to take the next step. And I wasn't always sure. I remember him being linked with Chelsea when he was an Everton player, and I didn't quite see it, why Chelsea were interested at the sort of prices that they were talking about. But he's kicked on massively. I'm still not sure he's necessarily an upgrade on Luis Diaz, and I think I said that on Friday. But as another option, he'd be great. But I mean, for me, Liverpool saying they're well stocked, and you can understand that stance. But I just think Liverpool need maybe a bit more because of the Champions League being back. I think last season you could make changes for the Europa League. You could play or try and play a Ben Doak in certain games and rest Mo Salah or Harvey Elliott, but you can't really make too many of those changes now in the Champions League as opposed to the Europa League. So Liverpool do need a sixth option there for me, a sixth senior option, and Gordon would tick plenty of boxes.
He offers goals for stars, like Gorst just touched on that record there. But when we saw Liverpool's season fall apart a little bit, it was because Núñez wasn't scoring, Salah wasn't scoring, and Diaz was never going to offer that goal return. Whereas Gordon, he's still young, he's got a very good return now. It's going to get better. Whereas I feel like Diaz has hit his ceiling. This is as good as it's going to get from him. It's a good time to move him on if you had the right offer, and then it's looking at the next options who can step up. And like I said, Gordon's a player they'll know well. He's homegrown, he ticks that box. He is versatile. Like I think when he was starring for England under-21s when they won the European Championships last year, it was more through the middle. I think I'm right in saying he was player of the tournament there. So he's obviously got a lot of talent, he knows the league. He's obviously speaks English, he knows the area. It would be very easy for him to settle in and hit the ground running. I think he's like best mates with Curtis Jones as well.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Like, looking back, it's like Liverpool have let him slip through the fingers once to go through to Everton in the first place when he goes from the academy. But it was setting up to be something that could be an exciting reunion for both player and club.
Absolutely. And so you touched on his age. He's obviously 23, which is an age that Liverpool like to recruit to the max, because it is when if a player is going to go on and improve and become that world-class player, it usually is like this stage of the career, isn't it? But as you touched on with Luis Diaz sort of at 27, what do you think this interest sort of means for Diaz, and what's the future role for him?
It's a strange one because it's basically since his dad got released after being kidnapped, and he mentioned Barcelona then, and I think everyone was a little bit surprised at it being talked about then.
Yeah.
But it's just been gradually fed by the Catalan media more and more in the recent months. It makes sense. We know South American players, they love Barcelona. They dream of playing Barcelona. Like Diaz has said himself, his idols are Messi, Ronaldinho and Neymar. It is that dream club for him. So it's not really a surprise. And while 10 years ago with a Squires or a Coutinho, you gutted to see him go. Like, it's a massive blow for Liverpool to lose someone of that calibre. It isn't now. They've put themselves in such a strong position. It's like, well, if you're going to test the resolve and the player wants to go, it's not necessarily a negative to let them go and change things up a little bit. It's just how it is. Like, Anthony Gordon potentially dreams of playing for Liverpool. It's who he supports. It's going to be the exact same thing for Luis Diaz with a Barcelona. They do need to strengthen in their attack. Like we've seen. The young 16-year-old for Spain, Lamine
Yamal.
Lamine Yamal. He's having a great tournament, but he's only 16. Barcelona had to rely on him so much last season.
Yeah.
They have got Lewandowski as the main striker. Rafinha's maybe not lived up to what they hoped, but their attacking options were limited when it was all on a teenager. So you can see why they'd want to bring on someone a bit more proven, but he's not really old, like veteran, someone who they could get a few years out of. So Diaz would tick that box, and with them, they'll know, he's going to fancy that move. So it's basically the exact same position Liverpool were in with Anthony Gordon here. If you know the player wants it, you're more interested to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think the future holds for Luis Diaz, Paul?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it. I mean, Liverpool have got no real appetite to sell. Yeah. That should probably be stressed, and they'd be more than comfortable keeping him in the team and him being a big star of the Arne Slot squad. But, you know, if Barcelona do come calling, I don't think there's a, like Theo says there, I don't think there's a real sort of like deflating of the mood in the way there was with a Coutinho in the summer of 2017. I mean, the money they got for him in 2018 certainly eased any, anyone being gutted the fact that he's gone. But yeah, it's not like it was with Squires and Coutinho. This is a bit more, okay, fair enough. If he wants to go to Barcelona, off you go, and they'll pay what Liverpool wants, and then you move on and look to recruit elsewhere. And I'd be a little bit concerned if it was Diaz out, Gordon in. Not gonna lie on that one, but yeah, with Diaz, I wouldn't necessarily be absolutely gutted if he was to pitch up and leave. I still think that area of the team are the ones where you want your exciting, edgy players who score goals and create, and Diaz does that. But there's a discussion to be had over, does he do it enough?
Yeah.
What are his numbers? What are his returns? And I think both of those can be improved. He could probably do with a full season fit, first and foremost. He doesn't really.
He's just had it.
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
It is the first time he's done it for Liverpool.
Yeah, I think this is always the one caveat with last season with Diaz, is that he did have that massive turbulent thing happen in his personal life, which you think that must have had some sort of effect on him for some weeks.
Such a unique situation. I know that involved sort of, uprooting his family and bringing him to Merseyside from Colombia, and all the kind of security concerns that went on around that. There was loads of things going on behind the scenes. So yeah, that's a bit of a unique situation. Probably not going to happen again. Fingers crossed. Touch wood. But I still think football-wise, there's a conversation to be had. I wouldn't be looking to actively offload him and sell him, move him on straight away, because I'd question whether Liverpool would get in an adequate replacement who can come in straight away and be as good, if not better. But if Liverpool were to supplement the squad with Gordon, that'd be, I mean, like I say, I still think they need a sixth option, so that'd be probably the best of both worlds for me. So we'll see. That there's loads of little strands to this transfer window, and I think I've said it a few times, with it being a totally new operation, it means you can't second guess them as readily as you once could, so it's all going to be interesting.
Yeah, it does feel like if any of the front five do go, it seems like Diaz is the one with the most interest, to be that he will be the one to go from the front five.
Yeah, and that's come from his camp. Yeah. His dad saying he's obviously going to be aware of that. It's probably worth noting as well, before the Copa America, he did say he was happy at Liverpool, and he wasn't going to think about his future until after the tournament. He's fully focused on Colombia. He was saying the right things there, so maybe it's a bit premature to be waving him off just yet. But it is just what happens now. If the offer's there and he wants it and it suits all parties, great. If not, you're happy for him to be part of your squad. He was Liverpool's most informed forward for most of last season. He just didn't quite get the numbers compared to some of his teammates. Klopp, I think, he said to a Colombian journalist after one of the Europa League games, he's first choice. He starts pretty much every week. And when he was disputing why he'd come off early or why he hadn't started that game, it was just after the personal trauma in his life. And he has always been really crucial to that Liverpool charge, that direct pace, taking on men down the wing, beating them with his skill, his trickery. And can you get some of that quality in who can do the same job but maybe offer a few more goals? Because I think it's quite easy to say now, he isn't a Sadio Mane. Mane produced more for Liverpool than Diaz. As good as he's been, Mane did that little bit more. You've got a Cody Gakpo there who's having a great tournament at the Euros on that left wing slot, who could maybe step in. He offers the goals a bit more, and it's like for like, and you're not worried about it, and then you are complementing the squad more. Núñez is having a great Copa America. He comes back and he's getting the goals. You're not worried about your striker. Jota's fit. And then it's just getting an understudy on the right-hand side for Salah, because we know he's out of contract next year. He's a bit older. It's just making sure your options across the board are right. So we'll see, because like Gorst says, I agree. I reckon they need a sixth, just because you've seen injuries for Núñez or losing form. We've seen Salah get that first big injury, and as ridiculous as it is, having doubts about it, the jury is out of, is this a one-off because you got injured and you need that full pre-season to go, or is this like the start of that natural decline, the start of a long goodbye? Just go and make those places your own, and if you come in and you're adding that sixth option, it just pushes everyone on that little bit more to fight for that place.
Yeah, I don't think you're necessarily stockpiling players there for the sake of it, which Liverpool really don't like, increasing the wage bill for players who don't play, but I do, like you've outlined there, a number of reasons why a sixth would be ideal, because, okay, you don't want to block too many pathways for your Ben Dokes and your Cade Gordons, but injuries do happen. You know, we can all show up for pre-season this week and they can all be fit and firing and ready to go as much as they want, but we've seen at one point Liverpool had 13 first-team players out injured. A shocking amount, really, and it's not like that was a bit of an isolated incident. Liverpool have struggled with injuries for years now, haven't they, on and off? So
it's pretty much the entire Klopp reign. You could probably take it back to Rodgers as well if you want to throw like Sturridge's issues. And
that's obviously one of the reasons why Slot has been brought in. Not the main reason, but he's got a good track record of keeping players fit, and that, you know, the more Liverpool can do that, the better chance they've got next season.
Absolutely. I think there's loads of question marks about what's coming up in Liverpool's future, but I think they've answered one of the questions quite clearly with Newcastle's interest in Quansah and how that was just sort of rebuffed immediately. So what do you think the future holds for him and Newcastle's interest in him particularly?
Yeah, I mean, he's had a great season, hasn't he? You know, you think he went on loan with Joey Barton at Bristol Rovers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I always get those two mixed up. Apologies to the Bristolians who are listening. He's just really taken himself to the cusp of the England squad, and I didn't really expect him to get a nod for the Euros, given that he hadn't had a cap up until the recent friendlies. But
still not got a cap, has he?
Well, yeah. But I still think once this campaign's over with and the friendlies starts up again, the qualifier starts up again in September, I think whether it's Gareth Southgate or not, I think they will be looking long and hard about getting Quansah in there and him becoming a real option for the long term England centre backs. You know, it's an area where they've probably not got the biggest depth, and don't want to labour the point too much with England, but, you know, Harry Maguire's sort of dropped out, hasn't he, and Jared Brantwaite's looking to kick on now, and Quansah will be in that same boat, and he's gone from being a youth academy hopeful to a was it League One where he was on loan to a Premier League calibre centre back in the space of, you know, barely 12 months. So massive future ahead of him, and I think Liverpool will look to get him tied to a new contract at some stage.
Absolutely. Do you see him as the future of Liverpool's defence also?
As it starts, I'd say he's starting next season as first choice for Liverpool. He's going to have that entire pre-season with Slot. Konate's obviously away at the Euros. I know he's disputed a little bit that he lost his place, saying there wasn't anything riding on those Liverpool games, so he wasn't as upset about it. But he struggled for form after he got injured, and Quansah was superb. United aside, he didn't put a foot wrong. And even then, when a player's that young, stepping up for the first time, you forgive them a couple of mistakes. And he stayed fit as well, which is so important for Liverpool at centre-back, because Van Dijk aside, the rest of their centre-backs have never been able to stay fit. They're always getting struck down. So it's good to have that bit of consistency there. And he is still so young, but you rate him highly, like me and Gorsty, Doyley. We've all seen him through the academy for the last few years, and he's always struck you as a player above his years. He's not this raw youngster like a Billy Cometio who's got a mistake in him, or he lacks something like a Reece Williams with pace, or Nat Phillips on the ball. He had a bit of everything, and you're just saying, can he make that step up? Gets his senior football at Bristol Rovers, and then for some reason he's just ready to go straight into the full first team. We were expecting another loan move, but he just came on leaps and bounds. And in 12 months' time, he will be in that England squad. There's no doubt about it. You look at their centre-back options now. Lewis Dunk's not going to have an international future after this tournament. Stones and Maguire the wrong side of 30, so it's about the change in the guards. And Quansah and Branthwaite, for me, are the future of that England team, those centre-backs. And they're still so young. Why on earth would Newcastle think they could get away? He is like the jewel in Liverpool's academy from the past year for me, more so than Conor Bradley, just because they've been looking for a new centre-back. The only thing that he hasn't got that they wanted is the left foot, but he can still play on that side as well. He's got pace, he's good in the air, he's quick, he's quick and passable, he can carry out a defence, he's got everything you want. He is first choice for Liverpool, and even if Konate gets that place back, Van Dijk's last year of contract, a little bit older, he is going to be that next linchpin.
I think England have done well actually getting Quansah in when they did into the fold. Maybe not necessarily, you know, taking him to the Euros, but because Ghana were basically sniffing around and they wanted him to represent them. I think he qualifies through his grandfather.
He's former Ghana international, isn't he?
I believe so, yeah. So, you know, they were keen, but he always sort of stressed that, you know, he saw his future with England. He backed himself to be good enough, and he's proven it. So, yeah, you're expecting him to kick on again next season, and I think he's going to be a mainstay for years.
Yeah, absolutely. It was one player that I just knew we would have no intention of ever selling this season. It would be Quansah. So yeah, Newcastle's interest was a bit mad, and it wasn't. He was so quietly brilliant last season. Like, just went about his business that I almost didn't expect to have to fend offers from him really this season.
I remember being on so we were on LFC TV and we were talking about Quansah. So we weren't talking about Quansah, but we were talking about the young players who've kind of made the step up this year or last season at Liverpool, and the person who was on with, John Bradley, who's the commentator on LFC TV, he reeled off a load of young players like Bobby Clark and Ben Doak and McConnell, Cade Gordon, Conor Bradley, and he forgot to mention Quansah, and I just sort of said, and Quansah as well, and he said, you know what, I totally forget about Quansah because you just assume that he's been around for that long, he's been around like for years because of how assured he looks and how mature he plays and how confident he is on the ball, and
that's why I say the same, didn't he, in so many press conferences?
Don't
forget Jarell Quansah.
And that's why I think Liverpool have got a real prospect on their hands here. It's not someone who's burst on the scene and having a little bit of a purple patch as a young player without fear. I think he really looks the real deal. And
so assured,
Yeah, and that's why I think Liverpool have got... obviously, they've got other contract situations that are a bit more pressing, players who are high profile, but I think once those are dealt with either way, I think Liverpool have got to move on to him and try and get him for the long term.
What was most telling for me with him is his debut came in the Premier League. He was starting Premier League games right from the off, whereas we can think of other youngsters that have come through and get fed the cup games. They might get the Premier League debut here or there, but they have to wait. Like Harvey Elliott had to wait. Bobby Clark, he only made his first start in the top flight against Forest in, was it March, April time?
March, yeah.
There's a few players like that. I'm not sure, like Kate Gordon's not started in the Premier League yet. Ben Doak's not started in the Premier League yet, and these are all really exciting players. Conor Bradley would have probably got it sooner if it hadn't been for injury. We saw his impact when he got into the side, but it's really rare for a player to just be thrown straight in.
Yeah, in a position of such responsibility, it's centre-back as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So as soon as they gave him that trust, and remember it was as well, Newcastle, 10 men, and he still didn't put a foot wrong. And then he helps them against Wolves, and it just didn't look bad, did he? He got goals, he got assists, and it wasn't a case of you're the Europa League centre-back, you're the League Cup centre-back. He got a decent chunk of game time in the Premier League to the extent he was Virgil van Dijk's first-choice centre-back partner. Like I remember earlier in the season writing a piece going, he's not played with Van Dijk, he's only come in alongside Gomez and Konate, and I think like 2 weeks after that he was just the Van Dijk partner for the rest of the season. So that is a big testament to him, like this sign of faith in his abilities, and the fact that he has been able to rise again, it shows that he is the real deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So it does feel like the transfer window is hotting up a little bit. Unfortunately, the new head coach is speaking for the first time to the press, sort of. Paul, what's going to be on the agenda? What are you going to ask him?
Yeah, so Friday, isn't it, is the day. It's. I mean, I can understand why they've left that sort of space in between, you know, the ending of the Klopp era and the beginning of the new one. I think it would have felt maybe a little bit shoehorned in, had Slot been taking his first press conference, you know, days after Klopp was left. So they've left a bit of space. It's going to be on Friday, 11 o'clock, early July, as we were told a few weeks back, and there's going to be loads to talk about, isn't there? Loads to get his views on. I thought his interview with Peter McDowell on LFC TV, was it the week before last, was really insightful. Loads of name dropping of Richard Hughes, the sporting director, because we know that they need to strike up a good working relationship for the health of the club going forward. He said he's already spoken to Van Dijk, so you'd imagine he'll have his answer on what Van Dijk wants to do with his own future, which I guess would be signing a new deal and staying at the club. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see his thoughts on the squad he's inherited, the quality of it, you know, where he feels that there might need to be one or two tweaks. You know, what does he think of Darwin Núñez? What's his plan for him? You know, what does he think of the young players, like we mentioned, Quansah, Conor Bradley, Caoimhin Kelleher? There's going to be so many fascinating things to hear from him, and we haven't got long to wait now, have we? Friday morning.
You excited to hear from him?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. For starters, I'm interested to see which journalists are actually there, because I'm sure a load of them are still in Germany for the Euros after England's turnaround yesterday. But yeah, there's plenty to ask him, and as Jurgen Klopp's been in charge for 9 years, you got that understanding of what you could ask him, how you could ask it, and what you didn't. So that could be something where you're poking the bear and you thought, it's not worth it. Whereas,
just don't ask about 12:30s again. Player welfare,
Whereas, because it's that clean slate completely, you don't mind throw in a couple of curveballs there, seeing what you get, sounding out the new manager. Like, you didn't quite give us any Klopp sound bites, but you didn't need to, as we've said on this podcast before, that in-house media interview with the club. But you still wanted to see what he's about. And there are a few interesting subjects you can get him on, like Salah's future, Van Dijk's future, Trent's, Nunes, Anthony Gordon. Like, there's quite a lot there, and you're not going to sidestep around it, because if you just throw him on his toes, see what he's got, and then you get an understanding, because you're getting to know him as much as he's getting to know the local media and the national media. So yeah, it's a start of
it's going to be interesting, you know, getting spark the ire of Arne Slot in your first press conference.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like someone who'd give you the hair dry.
Yeah, he seems like a cool Dutchman.
We'll find out. I mean, they're normally going off sort of hearing from Dutch people, Dutch sportsmen, Dutch footballers over the years, just reading stuff. They always seem very forthright and honest, and they're not shy in coming forward. So maybe he's cut from the same cloth. Maybe if there's something he doesn't really agree with, he'll tell us in no uncertain terms. But
a Louis Van Gaal style rant.
Could very well be. But,
I loved the Van Gaal press conferences. Just singing his own chants. He was great entertainment. As long as you're great entertainment, but a bit more successful on the pitch, happy days for me.
Looking forward to getting in front of him and saying hello.
Absolutely. And just one more thing, just on England. Just obviously we've done all the Liverpool news, but yeah, England's fit was sort of through the skin of the teeth. Really, it wasn't it? Yesterday, it was a dour performance and a world-class goal from Bellingham. But the two Liverpool players involved in the squad, Arnold and Gomez, didn't get a look in, even when things were going really badly for England. What do you make of that?
Yeah, you know, it seemed scraped by when the winning goal came. Came before the one that got them back into it. Bellingham scored in the 95th minute and then Kane in the 91st. Strange. Yeah, it was terrible again, wasn't it? You know, that's 4 games on the bounce now. England have been really uninspired. No Trent involved in this one. Couldn't quite work out why Ezri Konsa was favoured over Joe Gomez, considering that Gomez played his way back into the England squad on the back of a really good season at left back, virtually filling in for Andy Robertson and Kostas Tsimikas, and Quansah hasn't played a minute at left back all season for Aston Villa. But that's Gareth Southgate. He tends to make decisions on a whim, really, doesn't he? Sometimes I don't quite know what he's thinking, really. But yeah, England march on. I was tempted to say that England will get beat by the first decent team they come across, but then Slovakia were going to do it, and Slovakia weren't even that great. But
Switzerland have looked good.
Yeah, I do still think the way England are playing, that you know, it's not just a little bit of a sticky patch. This is basically how they're levelled for this tournament now, for whatever reason. And I think they could be looking at an exit now.
Yeah, like, you go through the team, and he's not willing to make changes. Throughout his entire England reign in tournaments, he tends to stick with the same 11, Southgate. But you look at the 11 he's picking. Pickford's had a great season, he's been in form, deserves that slot. But the rest of them, they're either out of form, out of position, or they've had injuries. Like, Walker's not been fit every week for City, and he's been up and down. Stones has had injuries.
Walker was terrible yesterday, by the way.
Yeah, really poor.
All the abuse Van Dijk got for being on or keeping Austria on side for the winner. Walker's even worse for that Slovakian goal. Trippier, he's had a really poor season. Yeah. He's not been playing left back. You can go into Declan Rice. He's not been playing as a 6. He's been playing further forward for Arsenal. Saka's had injuries. Kane finished the season injured. Foden's out of position. So you look and go, what? There are other players in the squad you can turn to. Why aren't you starting Cole Palmer? Why aren't you starting Anthony Gordon? And you come on to the Liverpool players. I was having this debate when we were watching the games on Saturday, just talking about what the team could be. And my mates was adamant that Quansah had been playing left back for Villa and Matty Cash had been right back. Thought, I'm going to check that. I'm sure it wasn't the case. No, he has been right back all season. And the logic there is maybe he's been first choice for Aston Villa. Gomez was in and out. But should he go for someone who actually played the position and played it well? And that's what Joe Gomez did.
Played it well enough to get back into the England.
Yeah. That's why he picked him based on his left back form, and how he's not. So, he's picking someone who didn't play left back ahead of him. Now it's mad.
Saying that Trippier's your first choice, Quansah's you go to. Sure, if he ever gets over this injury properly, there. So why on earth did you take Joe Gomez then? It's just baffling. But that's Southgate in a nutshell. And Trent, we can talk all day about it, whether he should be in this team or not. He should. He's creative. They were even though the winning goals come from a set piece, and technically the equaliser did from a long throw, the set pieces were pretty poor for the majority. At least Trent offers you that quality there. We know he's got such a great pass on him. The only good thing is they were so poor you can't scapegoat him for this one. He didn't get on. But we saw the footage at the end as everyone's celebrating. Gomez and Trent look miserable. If they're not going to be treated right by England, Southgate's going to keep overlooking them. At least Slot can get them back on the right step when they're back with Liverpool, showing that the international managers just mismanaged them because they're better than this. They deserve better than this.
Absolutely. And do you imagine he'll figure against the Switzerland game, and do you envision England will be going home?
I don't see Gomez getting a look in now because it's
the only thing
that
might go his way is Mark Gay suspended, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then, is it Dunk, or would you go for a Quansah?
Probably go with Lewis Dunk, won't he? I'm not sure, but yeah, I just can't see Gomez making too much of a splash in the Euros now, which is probably a bit unfair on him. But Trent, I don't know. He's tried 4 different midfielders now, hasn't he? Next to Declan Rice,
yeah.
Conor Gallagher, Trent, someone else who came in for him. Was it just those 3?
It's whether he brought on another one on yesterday. I sort of switched off. It was a boring game.
Yeah, no, he brought Eze on yesterday, and Saka was left back. It was crazy. It was all over the place.
And then he went back on the right wing, didn't they? And they changed formation.
Yeah.
Once he went to extra time, Saka went back to his right wing position from left back. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think these are the last days of Southgate's England tenure, doesn't it? And look, they've got enough quality players to win them games. They're sort of a bit Manchester United-esque in that way, where they'll win games despite the performances and despite the tactical instructions, if there are any. But I just think I've seen Switzerland in a few of their games, and they look well drilled and organised. And I think they might probably have too much for England in the next round.
And you're seeing that the pundits on ITV on Sunday. Well, it was Sunday, wasn't it? The shock that he didn't make any changes at half time.
Yeah.
It's like, this isn't one game when they've been poor. This is 4, and it's still the same 11 pretty much. You've got to put fresh legs in there. You've got to change formation, put players in the best positions, whether that's Bellingham a bit deeper, Foden as a number 10, or just get some creativity there from Trent. He's just got to do something different, and I don't think anyone's got any faith in the fact that he will. Bellingham's not going to get an overhead kick in every single game to bail them out. They will be going out if they don't make changes. This isn't going to be something that reminds them of how good these players are. Yeah, they're just being forced into something that doesn't suit them, and it's kind of going to get you so far. We saw Portugal in 2016. They had an awful tournament and fluked their way to winning it. Maybe England on a kinder side of the draw can do that, but it's not the English way, is it? They always manage to shoot themselves in the foot. As Gorst says, Switzerland have had a good tournament so far, that they outplayed Italy by far.
Well better against Hungary.
So, you can imagine if they don't improve, if they don't change things, it's going to be Switzerland in the semis. But that means 2 players back to Liverpool a bit earlier for pre-season, so we take the positives.
Absolutely, 90 more painful minutes of England's await, but fortunately, Liverpool will soon be back. That has been it for your Blood Red podcast. Theo, Paul, thanks so much for your time.